My name is Ivar Grimstad. I'm the Jakarta EE developer advocate at Eclipse Foundation. If you want to follow me on social media, you can choose either of these accounts. I'm probably more active on Blue Sky or LinkedIn these days, but I'm still everywhere. I'm a Java champion, Oracle Ace Pro. I represent the Eclipse Foundation in the Java Community Process Executive Committee, and I'm also a Apache committer, and I run a local Java user group in Malmo where I live. So come on, hey, a little bit of. So it goes both ways actually. So we love you too. So and I'm happy to be here, and to kind of give you the basis for why I could come with these claims is I'll give you a little bit of history, because as you know, Java is 30 years tomorrow, and that means that it's 30 years ago Java was invented, and Java was originally created for set-top boxes, for client-side development. It had nothing to do with servers at all. But it soon turned out to be very good on servers. So that's where it conquered the world. It was not on set-top boxes, it was on the server side. And that meant that they had to do something about it, so J2EE came along in 1999. And J2EE was a tremendous success, and still is. And my claim is, we wouldn't be here at the Java conference if it hadn't been for J2EE, because Java wouldn't have been anything. It's on a server it happens, and J2EE was the technology that made it happen. Well, while J2EE was a success, and it still is, it had its flaws. So if I wanted to create a simple, like say an EJB back in '99, I would create a class something like this. But it wouldn't stop there. So I would take this class and build some framework structure around it to make it an EJB. And I have to warn you a little bit, this is not for the sensitive people, and especially if you lived in '99, you probably want to be prepared. If you didn't live in '99, you can also look back and see what we struggled with at those times. So what you needed to do was to take your class, your little hello world class, and you needed to implement a couple of interfaces. So in this case, it was a session bean interface, which implemented an enterprise bean and a serializable. You also had to create some interfaces yourself, a local home, a home interface, a remote interface, and a local interface. And these again extended some EJB local home, EJB home, etc., which was all remote objects, because everything was remote, you know. And then it didn't stop there, because the server had to generate something as well. So it created these home objects and local home objects and whatnot they were called. So this is the Hello World app of '99. We as developer only had to create this in the middle, but still it's a little bit of overhead. And it didn't stop there, because when you took this nice little piece of code and packed it into a file, you had to give it some deployment descriptors. So it was a couple of XML files, and if you were really lucky, you had to do some vendor proprietary deployment descriptors as well. So there was a couple of XML files. Everything of this had to be packaged in an EJB jar file. You could have several EJB jar files and WAR files, and package them into an EAR, Enterprise Archive. So that's how you created the Hello World back then. So it had some flaws, and luckily Spring came along and addressed some of this stuff. But it wasn't just easy in Spring either at that time. If you had your Hello World class there in Spring, you would still have to put this into a package and supply a couple of XML files, maybe several of them. If you try to debug a Spring application back in 2004, it was search in XML files, because you had all these bean definition files in every kind of, and they were linked together, and it was kind of a mess to figure it out. So there's lots of XML files there as well. You package it in a WAR file, because that's what you had in a web application server. and that was it. So it was easier, but still not super easy. So Java EE came along, J2EE became Java EE. We got annotations in Java 5. We got annotation-based injection. So rather than defining your dependency injection in XML files in the first version of Spring, you can now do it with annotations. And JSR 330, which you can use add inject and add autowired interchangeably, came around there. Now it suddenly looked much easier. So an enterprise bean in 2009 and going forward today is just an annotation. So all this stuff we had, this is how an EJB looks today. So it's nothing to be afraid of. So if you lived in 99 and you remember EJBs was a mess back then, this is how it looks today. It's not a mess. It's very easy. It's very convenient. It's very modern. And these days, you just package them in a war or a jar, no XML whatsoever, and run it. So all of this goes away and has been gone away for a long time. So if you have bad memories about EJBs, those memories, you can pack them and keep them, like reference when somebody comes up with something a little bit overly complicated, like Kubernetes or something, then remember this. We've done it before. So I want to take you a little, we've kind of established a little bit of history and why Spring came and a little bit dance back and forth there. And now I'll go through some core concepts of Jakarta EE before I come into the Spring and relationship again. So Jakarta EE is not a framework as Spring is, it's a set of specifications. And a specification in Jakarta EE is a human-readable document, a specification document that describes the technology. It is an API that is in Maven Central that we as developers are using. And it's a TCK or test compatibility kit that we use to verify that an implementation implements the specification. And when it does that, it's a compatible implementation. And we need at least one open source compatible implementation to ratify a final specification. Jakarta EE 10 is currently the latest version of Jakarta EE out there. I'll get back to a little bit that 11 is actually halfway or 2/3 out. And 10 had a lot of updates from the previous version. All the blue ones were updated. So the purpose of this picture is show how much blue it is compared to the gray, for example. If you compare this to 11, which is the version coming out now, you see it changes as well from 10 to 11, but not that many updates, but it's still more than half of the specifications that are updated between 10 and 11. So Jakarta EE is moving forward. If we look at 11 in a little bit more detail, the platform is also a specification on its own and contains all these specifications. There are specifications for most things you need in an enterprise application. If we peel away a couple of these, we're left with what we call the web profile. And web profile is currently a subset of the platform. It's more targeting the traditional web applications. You have everything from UI to persistence with security and all the ties together in between. We also, in 10, introduced a core profile. And core profile is the minimum set of specifications you would need to create a usual microservice. So it's all the RESTful endpoint stuff, the JSON binding and processing, CDI to glue it together, and annotations and stuff. And CDI Lite was also introduced there in 10. And CDI Lite is a subset of CDI, which is context and dependency injection in Jakarta EE. And CDI Lite resolves all the dynamic things that CDI usually does at runtime, but can do it at compile time, so we can compile to native user GraalVM if it's limited to core profile. Jakarta 11 has a source level of 17. So we compile the APIs on 17, so you can use 17 if you have to. If you want to be on 21 or higher, you can do that as well, because we verified with the TCK that everything works on 21 and 17. And it also works on higher versions, but when we release it, we test on these two. We are trying to establish a release cadence of Jakarta EE that is about 6 to 9 months after what we call the LTS of Java. So Java 21 is way back, and if you look at May 24, it's about 9 months after the Java 21, which was in September 23. So we were ready, feature complete, everything done for Jakarta 11 in May last year. Unfortunately, we also started, or not unfortunately, but we did intentionally start a refactoring of the TCKs. You remember the test compatibility kits for the platform. And that has taken a bit longer time than we were expecting. It was written with the Java test harness, which is a test framework that was invented when J2E came about in 1999, around there. So nobody knows that any longer. And we wanted to make it more accessible to younger developers, so we want to use JUnit and Archillion and Maven and newer tools that everybody knows. And that refactoring has taken a while, and they're still working on it. And what we're looking at now is that we have released the core profile in December. We released the web profile in beginning of April. And we're going to release the platform in June. So we're about a year late with the platform, but all the specification has been out there for a year. All right, so how's this relevant to Spring? Well, Spring builds on Jakarta EE. And if you remember from the keynote, and if you didn't know that it builds on Jakarta EE, you can just look a year back when we did this namespace change. And you probably experienced that when you moved from Spring Boot 2 to Spring Boot 3, that it was a lot of Jakarta stuff, and all the libraries, and all the transitive dependencies, and everything. And that was all on us. But we're not going to do it again. We had to do it. It sort of cleaned up the ecosystem a little bit, because if you now find a dependency out there on GitHub that is on the javax namespace, you know it hasn't been maintained for a couple of years. So you should stay away from it and move to something else, or update it and revive it. But if it's not on the Jakarta namespace, it's old. So this was Jurgen's keynote last year. So Spring Framework 6, based on Jakarta EE 9 and 10 and early 11 versions. When he says that, he doesn't mean the specification, because Spring doesn't use the specification directly. It uses the implementations of the specifications. So they wait for that there is a compatible implementation that is supported for the specifications. This year, it's Framework 7 will be on Jakarta 11 versions of the implementations. Possibly also early 12, but that depends when 7 is out. And if we look at how intermingled these two, Spring and Jakarta EE is, this is Jakarta 11, but without the versions. There's just a set of specifications. So if I just call the blue ones are Jakarta EE, and I'll call it the one that relates to Spring green. So let's start with servlet. And the servlet specification, if you have started a Spring Boot application sometimes, and you probably all have, you can see it says starts Tomcat if you use the default. And it starts servlet engine Tomcat. So Spring Boot is all based on servlet. If servlet wasn't there, Spring Boot wouldn't start. So and Tomcat is the default you get when you just use the Spring initializer and get started. You can easily change to Jetty, but you can also easily change to Undertow, for example, or OpenLiberty or something else. And I'll show how we can do that with OpenLiberty. So let's go and look at the code. So I have here a Spring Boot version 3.4.5. I think that's the latest one. And I'm running on Java 24, and it's just a Spring Web and Spring Data. So let's look at the code. So the application is just a regular Spring Boot application. I have a greeting repository that is just the CRUD repository from Spring Data. And the greeting class is a Jakarta persistence entity. So it just has an ID, name, and a message. I'm also running an in-memory database, so I don't have any connections or anything, and it's no configuration whatsoever. The REST controller is using the greeting repository, and I have this. I can get the greetings, find all of them, or I can do the add a new greeting to the database. So it's a very simple Spring application. So usually if I start, I'll just maybe clean package, make sure it's built. So if I want to run this one the regular way, it would run here and it starts Tomcat like you would be used to. And if I do a GET request here, you see it's I don't get any response. Let me see here. Go there. Did I do something wrong? Let me see here. So for some reason this one doesn't find. Did I change the let me see here. Did I change anything? It says Dukes. This is good. The first demo fails. That's my dream. Well, let's just jump past this and say that let's try to run it in OpenLiberty instead and see if it goes better there. So if I want to run this one in OpenLiberty, I need to open to just have the server installed locally somewhere. You can probably package it in a jar as well and run it from the jar, but the first thing you probably do is just have the server running somewhere and deploy to it. So what I can do here in the server definitions for OpenLiberty is to say that, hey, I want Spring Boot 3 feature of OpenLiberty, and that will kind of disable the Jakarta EE stuff and make load the Spring context. I also need the servlet in there. And then I can point to the jar of the Spring Boot application here, and OpenLiberty will start it for me. And what I need to do is just take this the jar and copy it to the apps folder of OpenLiberty. So I just take the Spring Boot application I've created and copy it to my OpenLiberty server location. And then I can start the server by just doing run hello server, and you can see here it starts a Spring Boot, but it also starts OpenLiberty. So and from what I've heard, for a typical Spring application, OpenLiberty is way much faster than running with Tomcat, and has way better performance, and especially if you use the instant on, which is a crack version of OpenLiberty that can start from snapshots. So let's see if this one will run with the API here. So yeah, so now you see I have nothing in the database. I can post a greeting. I can see that now I have a greeting in the database. So this is a Spring Boot application running in OpenLiberty. So it's worth looking at if you want to run in something else than Tomcat. Then OpenLiberty is actually fairly quick. As I said, if you want to keep an eye on what's happening in servlet, you can go to the servlet specifications. The 6.1 is in Jakarta 11. 6.2 is coming in Jakarta EE 12. And as soon as Tomcat picks it up, it kind of gets into Spring Framework after a while. So let's look at validation. So Spring pulls in Hibernate Validator. And a Hibernate Validator is an implementation of Jakarta validation. It used to be called Bean validation. Now it's Jakarta validation. And Jakarta validation is going to do a major update in the next version. So it's going from 3.1 or 3.2 to 4.0. So there may be some breaking changes back and forth there, but they haven't really put out the details of the plan there. If we look at persistence, that's the JPA, or Jakarta persistence. That's Hibernate. Anybody using Hibernate? Yeah, so Hibernate is an implementation of Jakarta persistence, and it supports Jakarta EE, the version with Jakarta EE 11. That is coming soon as a GA, and then it will be pulled in by Spring Framework. And Jakarta persistence here, they did some breaking changes in, or didn't breaking changes, but they deprecated things in the previous version that are going to remove in this one. So the Jakarta 12 version is going to have some changes that will probably affect you as users as well. This is the previous version. It introduced UIDs as basic Java types, so you can do this if you want to in Spring applications as well. And you don't have to map between UIDs and strings in the database. It also supports Java records as embeddable classes. They deprecated the old calendar date time. So you should now use the new Java time API that came in Java 8. So it's not that new, but it's still new to us. So rather than using a date and time, you should use local date and local time. Data. It's not really a thing that Spring is picking up from Jakarta EE. It's kind of the other way around. So we've noticed that Spring Data is a very popular technology, and so we created a Jakarta Data specification, which standardized the repository pattern for data access. And if you are familiar with Spring Data, you're probably very familiar with this code. But this is Jakarta Data. So the APIs are the same, more or less the same, and in some places a little bit less verbose than Spring Data, and in some cases exactly the same. And this is by intention. We're not stealing. We're just looking at and being like influenced and pulling it in as a standard. We also define a Jakarta data query language, which will also be a separate specification. So it's an add-on, so you can write queries in a query annotation. So you don't have to rely on the method name, for example. So if we want to look at this, you're all familiar with Spring Data, but you may not have seen the Jakarta Data version. So I'll just start this and clean, compile. Run package, I'll run package. Liberty dev. So I'll start the server in a development mode, so I don't have to restart it between changes. In this case, I have a Jakarta application. So it's the same one I showed you for the Spring demo previously, but now it's a WAR file created with Java 24. It's using Jakarta 11, and I'm using OpenLiberty as the engine here as well. The code here, the greeting class is exactly the same, so there's no difference there between the Spring Data and the Jakarta Data. The application configuration is fairly much the same. This is how we configure a RESTful application in Jakarta EE. You just have to extend the application and give it an application path. And I have the repository, which is exactly the same as you saw, only has the Jakarta imports and not the Spring Data imports. The only place where the code is a little bit different is in the REST controller. And I'm using add inject rather than add orderwired. Same thing. I could have used inject in Spring as well. And in Jakarta EE, we have these separated the annotations. So we have an at get and an at produces, or an at consumes, so we don't put it into the post mapping and get mapping annotation. It's just a matter of taste. What you do is, I like this one. Some of it is a little bit less verbose, like the toList method here on the find all. You don't have to do the utility stuff and stream it and stuff. So it's something is a little bit easier. This application is similar as the one. we just did. So if I do put in here, I was in India, and I do the gid stuff. And let me see here if I can. Oh, not the Hindi Duke. I'll just get there. So I have these. I can also do the whole Spring, and just call it Duke. So you see, it actually works the same way. Here I'm actually having a persistent database, a Postgres database in the bottom. So I can call this one Spring Duke. And the same way as you can do with Spring, I can also do create use method names to create queries. Optional greeting. Oh, sorry. Haven't you been annoyed by this AI stuff? I mean, have you ever experienced it generates anything sensible? It's so I want to create a greeting. Sorry, I'll try to just do this. Find by name. Greeting. Sorry. Find by name. Ignore case. This should go. So, and I put in the name here. And then I can also do the find by name here. Do the same thing. Call that method. Say not found if I don't find it. And now I can search for the Spring Duke, for example. So if I go to this one and just list them all, you can see. I didn't put in a Spring Duke. No. Let's post this Spring Duke here, and see that we have Spring Duke, and then I should be able to do the Spring Duke like this. There we go. So Hola Spring. So it works exactly as you would expect with Spring data. So now we have that in Jakarta as well. So that's. If Spring data is the only reason you stick to Spring, you can move to Jakarta. I won't go through all of these, but these are the other. I did this last year. These are the other specifications that are either directly consumed or indirectly referenced or used in some way or the other by Spring Framework. So you can see all the specifications of Jakarta. I haven't counted them, but I would guess about half of them are green. So this is the impact that these two frameworks or specifications have on each other. In Spring, since it's a framework, it pulls in the implementations of the specifications in most cases, but you use the APIs that we produce in Jakarta. So I think this is fair to say, both of them. And this one we've been through. So what about I think it's undisputable that there is a very clearly dependency both ways there, especially from Spring to Jakarta. But what about the other way around? So I had promised myself I wouldn't do any AI thing here because I'm pretty sure every other talk is doing that. But let's talk about AI. So usually, and this is a very simple example, not fancy like at the keynote. So usually you have an application that does some business logic, and you call some AI in some way or the other. And there are many ways of doing this, and Spring AI is a very good example of how to do this. So Spring AI, if you haven't seen it before, so this is also a Spring. Spring 3.3.9. I thought I upgraded it. Okay, but at least I'm running on the latest version of Spring AI, and this one is also a regular Spring application. Nothing weird about it, and I have this REST controller that I can call the AI and with a message, and it will prompt the AI service. I've put this in a different component, and I'll get to that in a bit. So the actual Spring AI service is here where I say to do implement. So let's implement this one. And what I need to do then is to pull in the private, is it the chat client builder. So then I have a chat client builder, and with the builder, you can build things. So I'll build. I want to do all this. Let me see. Builder. I would do the. Did I do this correctly now? Yeah. You build it. Then I can prompt it with the message. Message. Oh, sorry. And then I can call. So then I did. And when I call it, I should get the content. So it's fairly fluent API. Even though I don't know the API, I can figure it out sometimes. This is what you do. You build, you prompt, you call, and you get the content. So Spring AI is awesome. It's super easy to use. And if I want to run this one, let me see, main clean package. No, I'm not here. I'm going to do CD. So, do Spring AI, main clean package. There you go. And then I'm going to run it. There you go. And now I can tell me a Java joke. It will call out. It works because I've configured it to use OpenAI. So I configure it with OpenAI, and then it calls out to the OpenAI. I can do it in Espanol. So it calls out and it works, and it's like one line of code. It's super simple. It's so cool. So of course we want to do this in Jakarta EE as well. So what do we have in Jakarta EE to do the AI stuff? Well, of course I can pull in LangChain for J, and do that as a library. I can call the OpenAI directly. It's just a REST interface like any other REST interfaces. And we've been calling REST interfaces since REST was invented. So we know how to do that. And Jakarta EE has excellent support for that. But since it's all HTTP, if you have a remote AI like this. But what if I really like Spring AI? And I want to use that. So luckily there is a way. And the solution is called CDI. So what I can do is I just stop this application here, and I have a Jakarta EE AI application, which is here. It's on Jakarta 11, like the previous application. And you're probably familiar with this now. It has the application and it has the AI resource, which I'm going to implement. But I want to use Spring AI. So what I have to do is I have to take the Spring AI application, and since I put this AI service in a Spring component, it's something that I can use. And I just want to pull that in as a dependency in Jakarta EE. But the Spring Boot Maven plugin kind of screws up the jar for me. So what I can do then is to deactivate the actual Spring Boot build and just use it as a jar. So if I do this, but now obviously it won't compile, since I've been a good citizen and written a test, and this one loads the Spring context, and when the stuff runs, it will fail here because there are no context. So then I do as any reasonable developer these days with a failing test. You know what that is? You delete it, right? So we don't need tests. So the tests are gone, and I don't need the test dependency any longer. So let's get rid of that one, and I'll now just build it as a regular jar, and this time I'm going to install it in my local Maven repository, so I can consume it. So now I've installed it, and I can go back to my Jakarta EE application, and I can add the dependency here. Dependency, what did I call it? Dux Spring AI Duke, and version there. So now I have the Spring jar in my Jakarta EE application. And then I need to find a way to kind of use it. And the way I do there is that I create a Spring AI producer. And this one is going to be I'll give it a CDI scope, so it's created. And then I'm going to do 3 things. First, I'm going to just define the Spring context. The next thing I'm going to do is to register the beans. So I register the Spring AI application that you remember from down here, the Spring AI application. And when I've done that, I can produce this CDI produce Spring bean. So what I do there is call the Spring context, get bean, and get the Spring AI service, which is the one I'm asking for. So now I have a CDI producer, and the only thing you need to really take care of here is that you use this produces the enterprise inject and not the Jakarta REST produces, because that one will produce like JSON for the REST interface. We have a name conflict there, but this one is a bean producer. So now I have that one, and then I can do the add inject, the Spring AI service, and here I can do the Spring AI service call with a message, and now I should be able to run it in Jakarta EE. So let's go to Dix Jakarta AI Maven clean package liberty run. So I'll just start the server, and it's soon up and running. There we go. And now I can do the same call, and now this application here is doing a Jakarta EE application using Spring AI to call out. So this is how you integrate a Spring component into Jakarta EE. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that was the demo. So how about turning it around then? Can I call Jakarta EE components in Spring? Well, it turns out you can, and I'll show this. I must admit I'm cheating a little bit here because I didn't have time to get it really up and running, but I'll do it and put it on GitHub sooner or later. But in this case, I have this awesome Jakarta GPT. It should be GPT, not GTP, but yeah, you know how it is. It was AI generated it. So sometimes you get. So this has an awesome model that I can prompt, and this is a jar created on Jakarta EE core profile, and that's all there is to it. It just has this AI model, and it is an application scoped CDI bean. So if I want to call this from a Spring application, what I have to do then is just make sure that my POM file adds this dependency. And then in the source, this is the exact same application. It's a Spring Boot application, and it has this GPT resource that has this prompt interface, takes a message, and it's going to use this one. But I have to do a little thing to get this stuff up and running, and this is where it is a little bit hacky. So I'm cheating a little bit there because I couldn't get it to really work. But the essence of it is that you have to register, you have to obtain the bean manager from the initial context. So you have to have a runtime that supports this. So you have to run in a Jakarta EE runtime like Open Liberty, or you have to add those dependencies to Tomcat and configure Tomcat so it can look up the bean manager for you, which is possible. And then from that bean manager, the CDI bean manager, I can get the CDI bean. And what I have to do here is just have a at bean. That has to be the Spring version of at bean, so it's not the Jakarta bean. So need to make sure these fully qualified paths are okay, and then I can just from the CDI bean get this Jakarta GTP class. I'll have to rename that to GPT. And now I can do the same way as I did previously, is to put this one in here and do the chat with the message the same way as I did with Spring, but now I'm calling a Jakarta version of the AI. And if I run this one now, I'll run it in the Spring Maven clean package. There you go. And I'll run it in Java jar target. Run it in Tomcat. So now I have this one running, and now I can ask this one, for example, give me a number, and it says 42. That's pretty good, right? What if I say how old is Java? Java is 30 this year. That's pretty cool. Let's ask the last question to see if it's really a super AI. Spring rocks. Oh, you meant Jakarta EE, right? So this is the cool AI. So I cheated a little bit, but it's doable. I did some talks back in 2013 about how we can integrate Spring 4 and Java EE 7. But that code didn't work these days because Spring Boot does things a little bit different, and I didn't want to use like a Spring web application kind of thing. So let's do the timeline again. But this is the Jakarta, the newer timeline. In 2020, we did the namespace. That was sort of last year stuff for the Spring community, or the year before, where you had this namespace change. In 2022, we introduced the core profile. In 2024 and 5, we support virtual threads in Java 21. We embraced records throughout the platform. We moving the platform to be a little bit more CDI-centric. We're getting Jakarta 11 out. And in 2026, we're going to do Jakarta EE 12. So, and that's next year. It's 1 year from now. It's the plan to release Jakarta EE 12. And as you've seen, most of these specifications in 11 are consumed by Spring in some way or the other. And many of those that are actually consumed by Spring are doing major updates in 12. So these are the results of the plan reviews that we've just finalized in Jakarta EE. So we're adding a query specification, and we're updating almost all specifications. We're also considering to add a couple of new. So we're under consideration is MVC and NoSQL. So NoSQL will provide a standardized way of interacting with NoSQL databases, the same way as Jakarta Persistent does with SQL databases today. But they have to be voted in, those two, if we're doing it in the platform project. So everything here is subject to change. With 12, the plan is to raise the API level to Java 21 and test on 21 and 25, because 25 is coming out in like 5 months or so, and that's the new LTS. So we want to be ready and be able to run on 25, but we're not going to use the 25 features in our APIs, because we want to have people enable them to run on 21 continuously. But we want to make sure it runs on 25 as well. So to sum up, I hope this kind of gave you a little picture of how Jakarta EE is relevant to Spring and the other way around. Spring builds on Jakarta EE. I think that's an indisputable fact. Especially if you look at this one, and also if you look at the namespace change that happened or a couple of years ago. So if we do the history thing, J2E brought Java to the server and inspired Spring to be created. And Spring simplified and inspired Jakarta EE, or Java EE. And Jakarta EE today develops a foundation for and is inspired by Spring. And Jakarta EE 12 is coming next year, hopefully, with a lot of new changes. So if you're a Spring developer and you want to stay on the upgrade path of Spring Framework, you may have to look a little bit at these specifications so you know what's coming your way in the future. Query is a new one, and all this is subject to change going forward. If you want to learn about Jakarta EE, then jakarta.ee is the place to start. We have a starter similar to the Spring Initializer if you want to try it out. It's on startjakarta.ee. You can read my blog. It's a weekly blog, and all the conferences I'm at on my blog here. And all the samples are out there with it. And so you can just take a look at the code. I hope I can update this. Use the Jakarta GPT thing from Spring so it actually works and not is hacked like it was. With that, thank you very much for listening and coming to my talk. And we have some time for questions if you have any. Thank you very much. Any questions, comments? All right, go out and, yes. Yes, I think it supports the exact same as Spring Data does. So it doesn't, okay. So I think they've generated whatever they can out of it. So I'll have to check the API whether it generates a delete. Yeah, thank you. Yes? So do I see a future where Jakarta AI will replace Spring AI? No, I don't. Currently, we don't have any Jakarta AI. This Jakarta GPT was a hard-coded 3-question model I created. So no, we want to specify something around AI in the future. But right now, things are moving so fast, and things are moving in all directions. Like a couple of months ago, MCP came around, and before that it was Agentics, and before that it was all LangChain4j or just LLM. So it's moving so fast. So trying to standardize something now, it's just we don't know what's going to happen. So when things stabilizes, I think we can standardize like we do with persistence, because SQL has been around for a long time and it's not going anywhere. When AI comes to that, we can standardize around it. Right now, we wouldn't know where to start.
Yeah, because right now it's a race, right?
Yeah.
Every company tries to use their own model, AI, tools, whatever,
Yeah.
to attract investors and so on. And when time will fly, it will become normal, and maybe Spring will not invest that much
Yes.
in AI.
Then a standard may be in place. Right now, if you want to look at how it could look in Jakarta EE, you can look at Quarkus and the way they do it, the CDI-based way of using AI. That would be probably where we would be looking. Thank you very much.